Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Football Savant podcast. As always, I'm your host, Travis Tyler, and I'm here to talk about some of the latest football news and the upcoming games for this weekend. Quick announcement before we begin. I've kind of made an executive decision that instead of having one episode that's all college and NFL just jumbled into one, I'm going to be splitting those into two separate episodes, specializing in each one going forward. Hopefully that'll be a little more efficient and allow us to cover a little more in each league. So there will be two episodes each week going forward. Today, we're talking the NFL. Guest today is Jeremy Swick. He's an experienced historian and curator and archivist who's worked at the College Football and Pro Football Hall of Fames, and he knows a bit about the NFL from his experiences. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Travis. I really appreciate it.
We're glad you're here. Start with the one big headline from the NFL this week was that the league has gone away from the Pro Bowl and is now introducing a new skill competition week and a flag football game. I think I saw it was at the end of the week. So obviously a lot of people have complained about the Pro Bowl. So what do you make of the change?
It's one of those things where, no one's ever going to be happy. If they get rid of the Pro Bowl, people are unhappy. If they keep it, people are going to be unhappy. But I mean, really, since the late great Sean Taylor laid out that guy in the Pro Bowl, it really hasn't been the same. I mean, 2013 is when they left Hawaii,
Right.
and it really became less and less of the Pro Bowl, if you will. And for
Mhm.
me, I think 2013, when they even split up the conference, stopped doing the conferences, that was
Yeah.
kind of the beginning of the end. No one wants
Yeah.
to go out there and get hurt. And I really like the idea of the kind of skills competition, make it fun. Maybe we'll get some bigger names that aren't in the Super Bowl then to actually come by. It's in Vegas. You're not spending all that time to go out to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I really like it, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a good change. I think like you were saying when they left Hawaii, I think that's when it started going downhill because back then, people started thinking of it as kind of like a vacation week with the game just happening to be, just happening to be played at the end of the week. And this is kind of similar type of thing when you have the flag football involved in it. It gives the players a chance to kind of rest up. You see all these injured players, skipping the Pro Bowl. The flag football games, there's not going to be contact, so it's maybe you get a fewer guys afraid of risking themselves in that game and all that. Um, are there any other changes you thought they could have considered, or is this like the best option that they had?
So for me, I definitely did think about that. One of the things is I do love the skills competition. I still remember those old videos of like Brett Favre, Dan Marino, Brian
Yeah,
Leftwich, all those guys throwing the ball as far as they could. And of course, they've done it a little bit with the obviously with the quarterbacks, but maybe having some of the guys, a lineman versus running back sprints or 40s or something like just something fun for the fans to be involved that actually take the time to go there. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is having that ability for player interaction with fans. I mean, that's what people go to events like that.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that and there's also the kind of that they haven't been doing the skill competition so much lately, but there's kind of that retro feel that goes back to those classic Pro Bowl days of the past. So I like them bringing that in too. Let's move into what we saw last week on the field. In week three, I'm going to start with the Dolphins and the Bills. How did the Dolphins end up upsetting the Bills there? Because the Bills were just probably the hottest team in the NFL, and everybody was crying them Super Bowl champs, and they just ran into a buzzsaw there in Miami.
I mean, when the Dolphins, what, they took the lead with like 10 minutes left or so. And I mean, I think that was the first deficit for the Bills all season so far. Obviously, young season. But I think sometimes with good teams and potential to be great teams, they're almost looking ahead and not really thinking about the
Okay.
task at hand. And that's how you maybe let some of these lesser known or less skilled you maybe man to man teams in and let them hang around. And then I mean, if it wasn't for not getting that playoff, right at the end of the game, it could have been a different story.
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, there was. The looking ahead thing is how you don't end up with more 16-0, 17-0 teams because they're it's a week by week, and they say any given Sunday for a reason, and the Dolphins kind of caught them on a good week, I'd say.
Exactly. And I think the Dolphins are a quality team too. It wasn't a terrible team winning. It
Yeah,
just the Bills kind of, I think, expected to win that game.
right. Oh, how about the Cowboys? They're 2-0 with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Are they a better team with him in there than they were with Dak in week one, or is it just kind of an anomaly at this point?
I think it's way too early to tell, but
Yeah.
I think with a lot of these guys, people forget they're quality players, and they might not be the same the superstar level, but uh, Cooper, he had a great career at Central Michigan. He was undrafted. He threw 90 touchdowns while he was in college, and
Okay.
so I think people forget these guys aren't bad. They do have a lot of skill set. Granted, when Dak's ready to come or able to come back, of course
Right.
he's going to be your quarterback. I would assume. I think some of the tough things is for opponents when they play guys like this. There isn't really a whole lot of film on them to
Uh-huh.
learn tendencies, and I think sometimes some of these guys get found out after a few games in as starter. I always think of um I can't think of his name now. What was his name? Matt Flynn for the
Ah, yeah.
Packers. He came in, had a 5 touchdown game after Rodgers gets hurt, and then goes off on his own and has an okay time. Not great, but then eventually.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these guys get figured out pretty quickly, and they have that jump start and that burst of energy to really go for it. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they're there to do. They're there to compete.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. The familiarity factor always comes into play. People are used to Dak's playing style by now and the way the offense works through him. And him being out kind of forced the Cowboys to adjust a few things, and I think that has helped as well during that time.
Exactly. And with a guy like Dak, you assume he's going to start. It's not like he's a fringe starter that might get benched mid game for poor play. I'm sure the defense was ready to play Dak and not, a little bit less of Rush.
Right, right. How about some of these other offenses? There's a few teams that are struggling to score points. So, is there somebody that you'd be really concerned about right now with their performance so far this year, and someone that you really think will eventually get off on the right foot and start playing like we expected them to?
So I have a maybe situation of a team that might figure it out. And that's honestly for me, it's the Raiders. Yes,
Okay.
they're 0-3 right now, which early in the season. That's tough though to start out 0-3 because now you're digging yourself out of a pretty big hole. But the problem with that is they were in every single one of those games. And if
Right.
the ball bounces, the other way on, a handful of plays, they're winning and they're 3-0. And we're talking about how great they are.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
for me, the other guy was the other one was the 49ers, and seeing if they can figure it out with Jimmy G in there. Of course, that running out of the end zone for the
Yeah,
safety is
never
is
good.
always a tough look. But
Yeah.
was he the quarterback for the Lions back in the day?
Yeah.
He was the last one to do that, and I
All
think
too
that
familiar with
that
that.
statement's kind of been lifted for him. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. The Colts were another team that kind of started slowly, but they came up with that win against the Chiefs. Is that something that you think Indy can build off of going forward and kind of, use to take the lead in that division?
I definitely think that's a good building block. I mean, they just need to get Jonathan Taylor involved
Yeah.
and ready to go. I saw that he missed practice for the first
Ooh,
time since ever, which is crazy. Didn't miss practice in high school. Didn't
yikes.
miss practice with the Badgers and with the Colts. And this was the first day he missed practice. So that's definitely a cause for concern. But then you never know. It could have been the trainers being, hey, just sit this one out. It's not, you can miss one day,
Right, right.
so
Yeah.
I definitely think that's a good building block to get to kind of re-jumpstart a season. As we were talking, it's so early that going from 1-3, 1-2 isn't bad, but you'd rather be 2-1.
Right.
As long as you're not 0-3 and you don't go in
Exactly.
0-4, that's when I think the real call for concern is starts to kind of raise its head.
That's exactly what I was going to say when you started making that point. The 0-3 thing was just not a good place to come from. And I don't has there been an NFL team come from 0-3 to the playoffs? I can't remember. They always say it every year, and I just got it escapes me right now. But
Yeah, it scares me as well. I know it's been a while since a
yeah,
team's done that. And I don't think the Raiders have ever done that,
right.
to be honest. I could be wrong there, but
So sticking in that division, the Chargers were just destroyed by the Jaguars last week. Should the Chargers be more concerned, or should we be hyping the Jaguars up a little bit more?
I think we should be giving the Jags a little more credit than we generally do. Um, to be honest, having the ability, the opportunity to see Trevor Lawrence play quite a bit in college when I was, down in Atlanta,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
he's a good quarterback, and I mean, I think we try to forget about the Urban Meyer debacle that was his rookie season, and as he starts to kind of progress and be able to trust some of these receivers a little more, Zay Jones was great, and they played well. I'm not saying they're a good team per se, but they played well enough to you know affect the injured Charger roster.
Right, right. And that was the other point I was thinking is, yeah, they beat the Chargers, but they're also very beat up, and they're going to be beat up for a while from all those injuries that I've seen this week and the week before. But the Cardinals this year, thoughts on them so far?
Again, some close games, some close
Hmm.
losses. Um, I think them and Denver. I think a lot of it's finding their identity, trying to figure
Yeah.
out what kind of team we're going to see the remainder of the season. I just remember, earlier this year when we were watching, Russell Wilson kind of fall apart against Seattle, but that's a lot. The first game of the year against, your old club where you were
Hmm.
kind of, a legend in your own right. There, it's tough to kind of I think be mentally locked in right
Yeah.
away to get ready to
Rein in the
have that kind of
emotions.
environment off your first.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
The reason I was asking that is because to me it kind of seems like they've taken a step back when they were kind of contenders in the NFC West last year.
Yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't say I disagree with that. It's one of those things again as we keep talking. I think the theme of this early season is it's early.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's just trying to figure out, but it's so tough to, come out of this week being 1-3, 1-2, 1-3 now, or 2-1, or 2-3,
yeah.
So it's just trying to I think a lot of teams are still trying to find their identity
Yeah.
with a 17 game season. They get a little bit more time, but you don't want to regress either.
Yeah. Do you think that was kind of the case in that Tampa and Green Bay game that we saw on Sunday? With all I mean, they had the injuries and it was so low scoring and not what many people were expecting.
So I would say it was really a testament to both defenses.
Okay.
A lot of it, I think, was bend don't break. I mean, I'm clearly you can see my background. I may or may not be a Packers fan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so watching that game, scoring 14 and then have Jones fumble on near the end zone to get no points and then not score points again after that. I think it was partially I think a lot of it was the defense, really both sides figuring it out. You had a good
Okay.
day at the office when your team held Aaron Rodgers to 14 points and the other team held, Tom Brady
Tom
to
Brady
12
at 12.
points.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so exactly, I think it's one of those things where the defenses were kind of on show. Um, and surprisingly not as much as the offenses we would hope due to, some injuries with with Tampa, of course, excuse me,
Yeah.
injuries and of course a suspension of Evans, and then I think with the Packers, of course, injuries as well.
Yeah.
on that front.
Those are pretty much the thoughts that I had on there too. But I just as you were talking about the finding an identity kind of thing, and with all those new weapons that they had to deal with in that game, I thought that that could have had some kind of effect in there as well.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think a lot of the early season is finding out who your team is, realizing you guys we don't have Devontae anymore.
Yeah,
Who else is stepping up beside Lazard? And
right.
Dobbs has been playing great, and I'm hoping big things from him. With the injury to Watson, that kind of gave Dobbs again another example, another chance to shine, if you will. And
Yeah,
then, of course, Watson will be back, and it's exciting to see Rodgers once he starts trusting those weapons that he has now. And it'll be an exciting and interesting season.
yeah. I think he trusts Dubs now after that game.
I would completely agree. At least for now, until
Yeah,
he
for
does
now.
something to lose the trust. But
Always on borrowed time.
he seems to be getting in there, and exactly.
All right, let's move ahead to the games this week. Obviously, you got the Dolphins and Bengals going on right now, so we can't really cover that one too much. What would you say is the most intriguing game on the schedule this weekend for you?
So for me, I have two answers. I think the logical one would probably be the Chiefs
Yep.
and Buccaneers to see how that plays. You know, both coming off losses. You know, just seeing how people are going to respond to injuries and that. For me personally, I'm headed up to Green Bay for the Packers game against the Patriots. So I'm hoping that's a good game, but
Yeah, you'll
not
have to.
too interesting, if you will.
Yeah,
But
you'll have to see what you can get from that Patriots offense up there. 'Cause I don't have a lot of faith in that there so far this year, especially if Mac Jones will be playing.
yeah, exactly. We got the guy we're playing Brian Hoyer
Yeah,
this week, I think.
and that brings me to another question. What does the change from Mac Jones to Brian Hoyer do for that Patriots offense?
Yeah, again, I think it goes off of what we talked about earlier with these guys. They're professionals. Yes, he's definitely kind of been like a Fitzmagic journeyman,
Uh-huh.
playing for seven different clubs, or I guess technically eight. He was on the Steelers for a brief practice squad kind of
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
weeks or something like that. I think 2020. But
I
he did great at Michigan State. He did good at Michigan State.
yeah,
35 TDs. And again, these guys they're professionals. So I there's a reason he was brought back. And I
uh-huh.
think a lot of good coaches, for example, Belichick, uh, it's kind of the next man up mentality. And so that's why it's something with playing the Patriots. I don't think you can count them out by any sense of the
I,
imagination. Of course, it's not Mac Jones. It's not how they've been, scheming their offense around Mac Jones and not Brian Hoyer. So it'll be one of those interesting things to see how that team is able. Is Band-Aid?
right.
And of course, with NFL QB Band-Aids, you want them to work more so than, and it's really just kind of hanging the glue together when guys are coming back. And less so in the case of someone like Jimmy G, who it's his team now on until the end of the year, till they're mathematically eliminated. Where I think it's tougher for some of these QBs that know they're going to be plugged in for a couple weeks until the main guy's back, and it's again, I think they're playing on borrowed time, doing the best they can with the opportunities they're given.
Yeah, and then I think with the Patriots, it's not like they're going from this super mobile dual threat quarterback that's going to kill defenses with his legs. So they're going from a one pocket passer to maybe another pocket passer that might have a little less of an arm and a little less athleticism, but he's a veteran guy and knows what he's doing.
Exactly. It's not, as you mentioned, it's not. It is obviously a giant step off, but
Yeah.
it's not a different style of quarterback. So I.
So we have a game in London this week with the Vikings and the Saints. You think the Saints offense can do anything against that Vikings defense? Because uh, the Saints really struggled um, so far this year on offense, except for Chris Olave last week had a pretty big game.
And I think they have a chance. I'm always kind of curious to see how going overseas just
Yeah,
affects players. It kind
yeah,
of affects the team, and not maybe not positive or negative. It's a different thing. Instead of flying, to New Orleans or flying up to Minnesota, they're flying across, the ocean
yeah,
to see how that gets them out of their rhythm. But I'll be honest, that Minnesota D is looking pretty nice. I know,
yeah.
of course, in the first the first game of the season, they kind of ran away with it on us, and Zadarius Smith decided not to be injured this year, and he seems like he's back and ready to play some football. Unfortunately, it's for, in my opinion, the wrong team
Yeah.
in that division, but their defense looks solid, to say the least.
Yeah, they've definitely looked improved so far this year, I'd say. On the other side of that, how do you think the New Orleans defense matches up with that Vikings offense that can score in bunches?
It's one of those things that I'm interested to see how that really is going to transpire.
Uh,
I don't know if I have a concrete thought on that, to be honest.
okay.
I've seen the Vikings offense kind of not stall out. I'm interested to see how that's gonna go.
Yeah, I can see the like a little jet lag working in there and a slow start because they're not immune to slow starts over here. Jacksonville, we talked about earlier. We're going to find out how good they are the rest of the season. What do they need to do this weekend to beat Philly, and what kind of uh, challenges do they bring to that matchup?
Yeah, I think they really need to let Trevor Lawrence be Trevor Lawrence, and show why he was drafted where he was. And I always love the kind of the story behind the story with Doug Peterson coming back after winning the Eagles a Super Bowl, and just seeing, I think good coaches, that kind of gets a little bit of rallying behind your team. Seems Jacksonville has bought into them.
Yeah,
At least more than they did last year with their coach.
right.
So
Well, hard to
I
buy
think
in
it's
when he's
one of
doing
those
that
things
stuff.
because the Eagles they're looking good. Yeah, exactly. So I think the Eagles are. I mean, they're looking good right now. So I think it's one of those, Jacksonville needs to come out and play like they did last week. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're more talented than a lot of people realize, and that all that buy-in from Peterson is going to do a lot of good work for them this year. And at least if they keep playing like they have been, they're going to finish a lot better than anyone expected. The Jets have announced that Zach Wilson's going to be returning this week to start. How does he change that offense?
So I mean, I think it's with his athletic ability and his
Yeah,
mobility,
I
with
agree.
him being healthy. But it seems like with a guy like that, they're not going to rush him back if they don't feel like he's truly ready to go, if you will. He's been out since the first week of the preseason, and um, I'm just excited to see him play. Get that opportunity there. But I think it's him coming out healthy and just playing his game.
Yeah, and he's like I was saying before with the kind of with the Patriots, just like, can do a lot more damage with his legs, um, and get out of the pocket than the other quarterbacks that the Jets have been using so far this year. Uh,
Exactly.
we mentioned the that you were looking forward to the Kansas City and Tampa game. If Tampa still has all those injuries to their offensive weapons, all those receivers, can they keep up with Kansas City? Is that defense good enough for that? I mean, I know it's one of the top defenses, but
I think again it's a bend don't break. They really need, I think, to turn Leonard Fournette on and just get him running, and then really trust that I mean, they got Tom Brady there for a reason. You would hope he would be able to take what he has and make something happen. I did see him try to run there, and he broke his knee brace. So
Oh,
I don't know how mobile he is. As he maybe I don't know if he was ever mobile, to be honest. But
yeah,
I think it's one of those things is just getting the run game early, to make him have to respect the run, and it's always easier when he's going to do when guys are do nothing but pass. It's like, all right, well, they'll run a little bit, but if you get both of those things going, it makes it more of a complicated game. But I mean, it's also with how the Chiefs play, it can be a shootout really quickly.
yeah, and that's the area I was concerned with. Is yes, you have Tom Brady who makes the players around him better, but do they have with those injuries, enough to keep up with the Chiefs if the scoring starts getting out of hand?
Yeah, it'll be one of those. I completely agree. It's one of those interesting things. It's how good is that Tampa defense
Right,
to get some stops and maybe try to slow the game down.
right, yeah, it could end up being a possession battle there. Um, so the NFC West has kind of gotten off to a slower start than we're used to. We'll say. Um, I would say the Rams to me are still the best team in that division. Um, is there competition for them out there still? Um, with the way the other teams have started, they kind of, I guess they've all started slow, but I feel like most of that division's kind of fallen off. What's your outlook there on that division?
So really for me, I think it's the 49ers. Jimmy G can't play worse, so I assume he's
Right.
going to play better. Um, now getting back, I don't see him running into the back of the end zone this week. Hopefully not, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I think if he can kind of take control, it's his team. He has to do what he has to do for the rest of the season with them. I can kind of see them, as we mentioned, the Cardinals kind of finding their identity.
Yeah.
The Seahawks, I don't know what's going on there. They lost to Atlanta, so
Yeah.
it kind of it is what it is right now. It might be kind of a little bit of an off year,
Yeah.
and maybe a rebuild. We'll see.
Is it just kind of a what's we call it? Who makes fewer mistakes kind of year for that division?
I think it really is. I do kind of feel like the Rams aren't as respected as much as they should be for just winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted the teams have changed a bit, but it's kind of one of those things that's like I feel like we don't, hold them in the highest light. At least not everyone does. But I think with them, they should be able to take care of that division short of the 49ers kind of figuring out their game and being, ready to go with Jimmy G. I think he's going to be the big question mark for that team and that
Yeah.
that division.
Okay. Real quick, we'll get you out of here on this one. What I started doing last week on the show was get a survival pool pick from my guest and see, who actually hits the end of the season. Last week, the guy picked the Chargers. Obviously, we know how that ended up. So I'll give you the floor to give your pick real quick. You got less than a minute here, so
Perfect. I'm going to make this really easy for me, so I know who I want to cheer for. Packers are going to be the Patriots.
I actually had that one listed down for me too. So that was perfect. Even though as a
I,
Detroit fan, I don't like doing that, but
hey, Detroit man, I love Jamal Williams. He's a
yeah,
good guy.
he's
We
a
miss him,
character.
but I'm glad he's getting his time to shine in Detroit.
Yeah, and he may be starting on Sunday. So